Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from New York City's Upper West Side, or I guess I should say Manhattan's Upper West Side in New York City. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast. Today I'm your host, Kaustubha Das. Raghunath is taking a break. He's not really taking a break. He's helping to run a whole retreat right now, right, Mara?
That's right. We got a whole lot of people here at the farm.
How's it going?
It's great. Nice people.
And
we had Radhika Das from London last night, made an appearance here for some kirtan. We got Danya in Bali. It's been wonderful.
Very good. And you've been cooking?
Yes. And
Do you
Bobby's
like to
coming to help?
You like to serve like that?
Yeah, I love it.
When you and Bobby get together, it's like two buddies getting together and serving everyone together. That must be really nice, right?
Yeah, it's really fun.
And little Frankie?
Yeah, little Frankie was cutting up cucumber slices, serving them out to everyone. Making little cucumber-like Rangoli artwork.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's impressive.
So today we have a very special guest. Today we have Keshava Maharaj coming all the way over from England. And Maharaj, we'll just ask you to wait one moment while Mara shares some announcements.
Yes. Join Wisdom of the Sages at our annual autumn retreat, October 11th through 13th here at Super Soul Farm in upstate New York. It's a beautiful time of year. We'll have morning and evening satsangs, kirtan workshops, asana, great vegan prasad, and you can be part of Wisdom of the Sages podcast live. So go to wisdomofthesages.com to register today.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
And we'll be back tomorrow.
At 7 a.m.
At 7 a.m. back in the Bhagavatam. Thanks so much, Mara.
Thank you.
And so our special guest, someone that we've wanted to have here for a long time, Keshava Swami, we've actually been talking about it. Let me just read your bio and introduce you. After graduating from University College London, UCL, SB Keshava Swami became a 21-year-old monk and continues that journey over 2 decades later. Having studied ancient Sanskrit texts for over 25 years, he's gone on to author 10 books and design over 50 courses, empowering his audiences to apply ancient insights to upgrade relationships, discover purpose, overcome inner blocks, and craft well-being on all levels. Keshava Swami's social media presence and online teaching platforms have introduced tens of thousands of people to Eastern wisdom. In 2022, he co-founded Think Gita. You can find that at www.thinkgita.org, which is now the fastest growing online portal for learning the Bhagavad Gita in a powerful, exciting, and life-changing way. Nowadays, he is a globetrotter, teaching in eminent academic institutions, Fortune 500 companies, governmental organizations, and spiritual communities. He remains a thought leader on the cutting edge, inspired to share wisdom that breathes, not just book knowledge, but deep spiritual insights that transform character and consciousness. Keshava Swami, welcome to Wisdom of the Sages.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here. We've been watching online, tuning in for the last few years and seeing all the amazing work and the amazing community and the amazing individuals full of vitality and full of spiritual hunger that come from the Wisdom of the Sages community. So yeah, really happy to be here and have a conversation and see what gems we can perhaps uncover in the coming hour.
That sounds great. As I mentioned, we wanted to have you here for a long time, and somehow it hasn't happened, but really great to have you here. Why don't we just start with your life story? Like, just tell us, how you grew up and how this eventually led to your life as a Krishna Bhakta and as a Swami.
Yeah. As you know, I mean, you're a veteran at this. So like we do podcasts and people ask us this question every time. And I think I tell the story differently every time, depending on how I'm feeling on the particular day. But yeah, I guess I grew up, as we know, our spiritual journey doesn't begin in this life. We're kind of carrying on from wherever we were in previous chapters of existence. And Yeah, when I was very young, I was always interested and kind of attracted towards minimalism, simplicity. At a certain age, I learned about monks, people who kind of turned away from the world and pursued something different. And I guess from a young age, that was speaking to my heart.
You grew up in a Hindu family?
Yeah, I grew up in a Hindu family in northwest London, so I was kind of going to the temples and kind of having some kind of religious observance, but nothing too involved or philosophical or, yeah, substantial. But yeah, I was growing up, and I guess the things that people pursue in their life as success weren't really moving me in the same way. And so I began searching. I guess I read the Bhagavad Gita first when I was 15. Um, and then yeah, I met the monks soon after. Started conversing with them, and when I was 18, I went to university, and I guess that was also a life-changing time. I was living in London, living away from home for the first time, and guess yeah, away from the normal opinions, narratives, and having some freedom to explore life a bit more, the dark side and and the good side. I was living just behind our temple in central London, so I was also frequenting that temple and also living my university life. So I was comparing lots of different approaches to life, I guess. And
What were you studying?
I was studying computer science and management. I wanted to actually study philosophy because by the time I was 18, I was already interested and inquisitive. But yeah, my parents convinced me to do something practical that would get me a proper job. So I studied computer science and management. And yeah, through those university years, I just began delving a little deeper into Krishna, Krishna consciousness, the Bhagavad Gita. And then when I was 21, I knew that I couldn't just go into a job and a career. I really needed more time to figure out my trajectory. And so I decided I wanted to go to India. I didn't have any money because I had just like spent whatever it was, thousands of pounds on a university education. So I ended up becoming a baggage handler at Heathrow Airport. You know, those guys that wreck your luggage.
On the tarmac, like throwing the bags into the. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing that for like 3 months, got enough money, got a ticket to India, and then I went to stay at our ashram in Mumbai, Chowpatty. Many of you know His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, so that was kind of his base. And so we stayed there for 6 months, traveled.
What year was that? What year?
That was 2002. Yeah, so I kind of lived there for 6 months in 2002 and then came back to the UK and then decided to do another year as a monk in our monastery in London. And yeah, 1 year turned into 2, 5, 10, 20. So I lived at the manor for like 20 years. And then couple of years ago, I accepted the renounced order of life, sannyas. And so yeah, nowadays I'm traveling more. The manor London is still my base, but yeah, so I guess.
No, that fills us in the general picture. I'm wondering, so when you say you entered the renounced order, in one sense you've been living renounced already, but that meant like a lifelong vow when you take that vow of sannyas.
Yeah, it's kind of like so there's two stages of renounced life. One is known in Sanskrit as brahmacharya. It's like student renounced life, and then there's sannyas, which is lifelong renounced life. And sometimes people go from student renounced life to lifelong. They kind of just make that transition, and many will live student renounced life and then make a transition to marriage, and then eventually retire, and then perhaps go towards renunciation. So, yeah, there are different courses for different horses, as they say. Yeah, so I took that vow, and what it essentially means is that we make a vow to live a renounced life for the rest of our lives. in one sense, it's kind of like closing all the doors. Like you walk through the door and then you close it behind you, and then there's no going back, and you just kind of try to like now just focus on the way forward to eternity. So
What I'm curious to hear from you about, one thing I'm curious to hear from you about is, so you had a particular plan, or at least your parents had a plan, that you would kind of pursue, successful career in life. And usually that would include, a wife and a home and kids and money and so on. But you started getting an inspiration from Bhagavad Gita and from monks that you had met. Then you entered that life, and then you just stayed with it, and you stayed with it and stayed with it. There must be something in that renunciation, or in that closing of the doors, that has a taste that is satisfying, or so satisfying that you're ready to leave behind all the other pursuits that pretty much everybody else in the world is pursuing. Could you describe what it is that when you wake up in the morning, or when you lie down to go to sleep at night, or as you move throughout your day, what is it that's satisfying to you, or driving you, or inspiring you? What is that you feel or experience that makes you say, this is what I want to stay with, this is what I want to, this is how I want to live?
yeah, I guess there could be many things, but two things which come to my mind, which are kind of interlinked. And I would say the two words simplicity and focus. For me, the idea of simplifying things and not having your mind in 100 places brings a certain focus. And living a life where every part of your life is kind of aiming towards the very same thing. Now, of course, the Bhagavad Gita says that you can also achieve that when you're living in the world. You connect your family life to your spiritual pursuits, you connect your career to spiritual pursuits. But as all of our viewers, I'm sure, have experienced, it's not always easy, because you're dealing with a world in which there's so much complexity, and it's difficult to bring everything in line and synergize it in that way. But monastic life is a great blessing, because you almost like say no to everything else, which, as you mentioned, is a bit, that takes something. But the great advantage you get is that you get this life to lead where practically everything you're doing from morning to evening, every waking and even sleeping hour, is kind of aiming towards one thing. And I think that level of focus is actually really beautiful, just to kind of be totally immersed in one goal. And I think that for me is like really satisfying.
Thank you. Yeah, people have different kind of minds, different, we're born with a certain background of mind coming from previous life, and then it gets more shaped again through our childhood. And some minds may, I suppose some minds may connect in bhakti in a sense a narrower path, or simpler path, or let's say a path that's stripped down, right? And some, you look at Raghunath, like he's got a huge house, he's got lots of kids, he's got all kinds of stuff going on, but it's also all focused in a way. Yeah. So you grew up in a Hindu family. It seems like maybe your interest kind of exceeded your interest in spirituality, or quote unquote Hinduism, maybe exceeded that of your parents. I'm sure you must have been exposed to different teachers and different lineages, different ideas, the personal approach to understanding the absolute truth, the impersonal approach. What was it that made you think Krishna Bhakta? That's my path. That's what I meant to follow.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, actually, although I grew up in a Hindu family, it's not that we were so philosophically exposed to different things. We were going to a bunch of different temples. We were doing a bunch of different rituals. We were introduced to a bunch of different types of worship. but it was very kind of ritualistic. It was very much just a cultural thing more than something which was deeply thought out. And so I guess my first philosophical explorations were with the Bhagavad Gita. I remember when I was 15, I really wanted to read the Gita, so I went to the library and I got 3 versions of the Gita, all from people who are kind of, espousing different philosophies, different schools of thought. But none of them really resonated with me because I felt as though they were very heady. They were just very much in the mind. They were almost like philosophical gymnastics. And I think what attracted me to the Krishna path, to Srila Prabhupada's teachings, to Srila Prabhupada's Gita, was that it was very practical. It was kind of like, this is the philosophy and this is what you do tomorrow to live it. And for me, that was like beautiful. Like, I remember once Rida Ananda Maharaj was giving a class, and of course he was at Harvard and he was studying so much philosophy. And he said that what he appreciated was that he came to the temple, I think it might have been Berkeley Temple, and he said, I heard a class and they told me you're a servant of Krishna. And it was an amazing class. And at the end, they gave me a mop and they said, now mop the temple. And he said, I loved that because it was the first time where I could kind of take something and really live it and really experience it and really do something with it. So yeah, I think for me, that was it. What attracted me to Krishna Bhakti was how transformational and applicable and integrable, if that's a word, it was in our daily life. Integratable.
I don't know if that's even a word. But so then your first kind of full immersion would have been in the temple, Radha Gopinath temple in Mumbai. And both Raghunath and I have spent a lot of time. It's kind of a home away from home for us as well. And when we were monks, we also spent a good amount of time there. At least I did, maybe not Raghunath so much. Could you describe life there, like what that was like, what the training was like, what you learned, who you met, what was special about that time?
Yeah, a few things stand out about my time there. I think the first thing was family and friendship. Like, I was coming to monastic life and, for example, I was reading a Buddhist book of monastic life when I was kind of getting interested in this kind of stuff. And it said, perfection for a monk is if you die and nobody knows and nobody cries. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I was kind of like, I had this kind of concept of monastic life, a disconnect, solitude. And being in Mumbai was like a real kind of paradigm shift because there was such family, there was such community, there was such friendship. And I realized for the first time that without relationship, there's no deep immersion in spirituality. And so the openness and the kindness and the warmness of the other monks there and the whole community, it really opened my heart in a different way, I think, to deeper spiritual experiences. And it shifted my conception of how to actually live my spiritual journey going forward. And now if anyone asks me, like, what's the most valuable thing you have in your life, then I tell them, like, hands down, it's my relationships and my friendships with others, So I think family and friendship was definitely a big kind of, something I really learned there. I think another thing I learned was just an intensity of spiritual practice. Like, I was chanting on beads kind of before, obviously, I'd gone to Mumbai. And I remember coming for the first day where they have the kind of morning program at the temple and sitting down to chant with everyone else there. And it was like the first time in my life, I was like, wow, this is like serious. These guys take this really serious. And like everyone would just sit down, cross-legged, close their eyes, and they would just sit in circles, and it was like, it was like, it was intense, you know, and it was like, for the first time, I realized that spiritual practice is really serious business. And I had the fortune at that time, Radhanath Swami would also come and chant with everyone. And so, you know, everyone would be, you know, like vying for that spot where you could chant in front of him, you know, and it was like just being in that kind of company of someone who is very absorbed and individuals who are very absorbed, that was very powerful for me. So yeah, like deep spiritual practice was also, and I think the final thing, amongst many other things, maybe I can share, is just study of the scripture. In Chaupati, I kind of, we would have all these classes every day. They'd have like a brahmachari class, a class with all the monks, and it was just amazing to see how they were drawing all these amazing lessons, all these amazing kind of life hacks, you know, from scripture. And it was the first, you know, I had always thought of scripture as very otherworldly, you know, something that would help you definitely in your journey in eternity. And here they were like really discussing scripture in a way which was transformational to us like now. And I was like, wow, these books are really like multi-dimensional. They really, so it really inspired me to look deeper into like wisdom and scripture.
That's great. You know, the monks there, so many of them are coming from the top universities in Mumbai, which are really the top universities in the world, like what is that, IIT. And you see something so dynamic in what they're doing is that here are young men, in most cases born and raised in Hindu families. Maybe a circumstance similar to yours where the family is kind of following it, but not with a full understanding of its significance. Maybe some of it is just tradition and you're just following it for the sake of tradition or to be pious, to cultivate some good karma in life. And then they would go into these universities and taking from like the way that Srila Prabhupada presented Bhagavad Gita and presented Srimad Bhagavatam, presenting it in a way that was much more like, hey, we can transform ourselves and transform the world through this knowledge. This isn't knowledge that's just some traditional thing to cultivate some piety in life, but this is actually has answers for the individual, has answers for society. And when you have these like super brilliant young monks going into the universities and presenting this, it's like, boom, you see all these people lighting up. Were you watching that happen, or was that happening to you while you were there?
Yeah, I was just amazed at how well, firstly, it was incredible to see people who were so intelligent, who were like the top of their kind of generation academically, and they were just like being stimulated by this knowledge of scripture and being able to present it in a way that addressed people's needs, interests, and concerns. And it was like, it was powerful. I'd never thought of wisdom in that way. What had attracted me to monastic life was not so much the wisdom of it, but it was more just, I guess, the lifestyle of it, the idea of solitude and, you know, just complete focus on something otherworldly, higher spiritual dimension. But it really connected me to like wisdom as one of the greatest treasures that we have. So yeah, and a lot of them were like engineering students and kind of mathematically minded, which I guess is kind of like a little bit who I am as well. So like they would look for like patterns, they would look for structure, they would look for a flow.
Like Chaitanya Charan, the spiritual scientist, when we have him on, like he'll just categorize and systematize anything you say as you're saying it, and he's just got that engineer's mind, and then applying it to the philosophy of the spiritual philosophy.
Yeah, so that kind of like just breaking it down was beautiful. I have a bit of a mathematical brain as well, so I'd also try to do that. Of course, over the years, I've also realized that can have its limitations as well, because like everything doesn't have to be the 5 stages of this or the 4 aspects of this, or the sequence of this. Sometimes life is just a little more fluid than that, but it helps in the beginning just to kind of get a picture and just to immediately kind of grasp things. So that was impressive.
And I find it interesting that you said it's interesting because as I mentioned, I was a brahmachari for 14 years, and I started visiting the Radha Gopinath temple and spending time there. I started to get to know the brahmacharis from there, the monks from there, maybe as early as 94, 95. And I started visiting there around that time. And so then I got to know them very, very well. I would stay in that ashram for a few weeks or so at a time. And I would also get to know that entire community. And so when I asked you what you found, what was important about that time for you, you mentioned that the family, not just the monks there, but like the entire community. And, Radhanath Swami's, the depth of what he did there, I just kind of found it to be, boy, there's no stone unturned here, or something like that. Like he really thoroughly brought in a depth of spiritual understanding into the forms that we use, the form of what it means to be a monk, the form of what an ashram is meant to be, the form of what it's meant to be a married person, all the different forms that we create to give some stability, but that can also become problematic if we're not careful. And I remember, for instance, the life of a monk and that life of letting go of everything and simplifying your entire life, the wisdom that leads one to that. It is a beautiful thing. And there is something beautiful in that minimalism and that simplicity and that focus. But when we're new to it, the maybe almost inevitable anartha that arises from that is some pride in that, that like we're better than those that don't follow this path, that those that apparently need these things of the world. And I remember, and of course, as a monk, I'm sure I embodied that to some degree. Hopefully I was gradually maturing out of that. And I witnessed it, in so many different ways. And I remember the monks there telling me that Radhanath Swami established a rule for all the monks. And that was the moment that the monks begin to criticize the householders is the moment that they're asked to leave. It was like that strict. It was like, like really drawing a hard line. And with that, he was training the householders to really admire and hear from and support the monks. And he was training the monks to really admire and see the depth of the Krishna consciousness in the householders. And he created a kind of beautiful, I don't know if codependent is the right word, but a beautiful union there that just manifests in a way where you step into that world and you're like, it's all here and it's all happening in a beautiful way. I'm hearing the same wisdom, the same knowledge, the same culture from different angles, from so many different angles, and it's being manifest in so many different beautiful ways through beautiful people, that it was really something special there.
Yeah, no, for sure. He really created this community of appreciation, this community of respect, that the renunciates would look at the householders and think, they're so busy, they've got so many responsibilities, they've got so many demands to attend to, but still just see how dedicated they are. And then the monks would go back and think, like, we need to do more, we need to be more dedicated. Just look at them, they're doing so much, even though they have so many worldly duties. And then the householders would look at the monks and say, like, just look at them, they're young, they're intelligent, they could have done anything, but they've given their whole life for service, and we should do more, we should also stretch ourselves. And like that, they learned to see the good in each other. And that's the beauty of community, that we are able to see the diversity, celebrate the diversity, and also draw and kind of learn from that diversity. And I think also by nature, the household life develops certain qualities within you, and the renounced life also develops certain qualities within you, and we can share with each other. Like the renounced life develops the quality of definitely wisdom, renunciation, that kind of simplicity, focus, mission, of sharing. These are kind of qualities that you naturally, as a renunciate, will develop. But as a householder, sacrifice, selflessness, compromise, learning to, kind of empathize with others. These are qualities you have to learn as a householder. And actually, all of these qualities on both sides need to be cultivated by both individuals. So I guess it's a beautiful thing when we have that community.
I remember they also had a rule there that when you're asked to do something, if you say no, that's also when they ask you to leave. Too. Like it was that, in one sense, it was that rigid for the monks. Like it was like you come here, in a sense, you give up everything, even your own freedom to just, it's like joining the military in that sense. You're a servant. You're a full-on servant. 24 hours a day. But you see what it would create. The really beautiful characters that grew out of that ashram. So then you spent how much time there?
So I was there for 6 months in 2002. And then I came back to London, and I was kind of like, I don't think I can just go back into doing a job now. Like, I have to explore this further. So we have the Manor, which is the monastery donated by the Beatles, which was kind of a place I was going to from a young age. So I decided to commit to like living there for a year as a monk. And that was the beginning of my journey there.
And so I'm assuming, since you've developed over 50 courses, at that point you started developing courses, or shortly thereafter developing ways to present this knowledge, particularly in universities?
Yeah, I think one of the great blessings of my life was that I think from practically the first day in living in the monastery in London, the ashram, I was sharing from the very first day. I was learning, I was hearing, and then I was explaining, and I was expressing, and then I was learning, I was hearing, and then I was explaining and expressing. And that kind of rhythm of breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, I just feel like it was one of the most beautiful ways to go kind of deeper into the knowledge, to go out and to try to think like, how does this affect people? Like, what does this mean for people's lives? And then hearing how people receive the knowledge, and what doubts they have, and what obstacles they have, and what difficulties are there to accept it and apply it. Learning all of these things made me go back and study deeper to think like, okay, how do we figure this out? And then come back again. So we were going to universities. Of course, I had studied at UCL, so it was the very first place I went back to. I was like, I'm going to go back to my university and teach them something. So I used to go to UCL, and we used to do events there, and it was beautiful. And to this day, actually, I love going to the universities. Just the other day, we were at Illinois Institute. And on this trip, we'll be going to a lot of different universities. And I just find them such a beautiful place. Intelligent young people who are questioning, and so that was really good for me.
And so you, in one sense, you're doing the same thing now. I think it's just kind of grown and matured in certain ways, bringing knowledge in different forms. You have this online Gita platform. Could you speak a little bit about that?
We started this kind of platform Well, first we started a school of bhakti at the manor. Education at the manor was going on for many years, but we kind of reinvigorated it, you could say. So we started teaching a lot of courses there systematically, like the scriptures, which are sometimes vast, which are multi-layered, and trying to just make them more accessible for people, and trying to teach them in such a way that, like we said, people can apply those knowledge, those insights. And then we thought, why not do something online? That's where the world is now. So we began a couple of years ago teaching courses on the Bhagavad Gita online. So we've done loads of different courses. Recently, we did something called Life Hacks from the Bhagavad Gita. So we talked about the secret of manifestation, the science of communication, the solitude of friendship, I'm forgetting now, the science of letting go. So we talked about all these things, and we've really developed a beautiful community now. So we have big courses every year where anyone can kind of just connect. And then we have like what we call Gita circles, where like we have about 40, 50 groups now where people just kind of connect, similar to the sage groups. And it's beautiful. It's a community, and it's a place where people can go and learn things in a place, like in a space where they won't be judged, and where we really try to have a very open forum so people can really express themselves.
And where could people go to find out more, like Gita courses, say?
So we got a website, www.thinkgita.org. We have an online kind of, obviously, on the social media platforms, and I think soon this month we might be beginning something. You can log on the website, and kind of connect.
Now, we thought maybe we'd just throw a few kind of random questions at you about life. And just throw out a topic and hear what you might have to say about it. But even before we get there, I'm curious, as a person that's British, but raised in an Indian family, in a Hindu family that spent time in India, when you come to America and you take a look at us, you can be honest with us, okay? You can shoot straight. What do you make of this place? Like I'm interested to hear through your eyes, through your eyes as a person from another part of the world, as well as a person that has, through the eyes of a monk as well. How do you look at either New York City or America as a whole, or both? You can be honest.
Better be careful. I think different parts of America are very different, actually. Like being on the East Coast and being on the West Coast, it's like, New York moves at a different pace, But I think the first thing is that I think with Americans, what you see is what you get. Brits tend to be a bit more diplomatic, tend to be a little more they just tend to be a little bit more reserved. They don't open up immediately. They kind of test the water, see how things are going, and then. So that openness, I think, it can be beautiful. It can be misunderstood as well, and it can maybe cause a little bit of Anyway, whatever.
A little messy sometimes too.
A little messy, exactly. Yeah. But I think that openness is beautiful. It is that curiosity, that honesty. It's interesting that in the scriptures we say that the last leg on which society stands now is truthfulness. And there's a beauty to just being able to be open, being genuine, being kind of revealing whatever's in your heart. And I think that has great benefits for someone's journey, obviously tempered in a certain way. That's one. I definitely have one observation I have of America and Americans. Another observation I have is motivation. I feel like, at least in whatever parts of America I've been and whoever I've interfaced, there's a sense of really having drive to do something. Maybe, you know, America has always been a country which has influenced the world. And so I find Americans very driven people generally, which I think is also a very beautiful thing. You know, it really unleashes their potential and allows them to make contributions to the world. And America through the eyes of a monk, I don't know. I think Srila Prabhupada, our founder, came from India to America, and he really had a love for America because he just found it to, I guess, be very welcoming to new ideas, and I guess that still remains here, and therefore wherever I go, I see that people are very welcoming, and I think it's written in Prabhupada's biography that in America, like even a saffron monk coming from India, like nobody really even in New York City, it was like nothing amazes anyone here, you know.
Actually, you may have a different reaction.
But in New York, so that just welcoming kind of spirit.
Okay, well, not so. He took it easy on us, I think. Thank you for that. So let's just ask a few questions. And we sometimes we call this like a prophet-style interview, where we just throw out a theme and you just share some thoughts. So, as a monk who's let go of so many things, including money, what advice would you share with us about money? What to think of it? How to deal with it? Any thoughts about that?
I think two things. Earn with integrity and spend with generosity. Often the money in and of itself is not bad. It's interesting, the biblical statement says money is the root of all evil, but I think the actual statement is the love of money is the root of all evil. And so I think with money, what we encourage people to do is firstly earn it with integrity. Sometimes what happens is in the process of pursuing wealth, we lose our balance, we lose relationships, we lose our principles, and therefore, like in the pursuance of gaining all this money, you actually lose something much more valuable. And so I think the first thing is to earn with integrity. And in the Vedic system, it's kind of like dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And you know, everything begins with principled living. And so I think that's the first thing, earn with integrity. And then I think once you have the money, it's like spend with generosity. Like, how can you utilize that money to benefit, you know, more than your just immediate circle and your immediate interests. And so when we do that, and when we utilize money in that selfless way, then it actually connects us to our spiritual essence and really satisfies the heart in a deep way. And so it's beautiful. Like in our movement, in our communities, we see individuals who have become incredibly successful and fabulously wealthy, but they earned it with integrity and they spend it with generosity, and I guess that's the spirituality of money.
You know, there was such an interesting answer. I think I want to dig a little bit more into this, because a lot of people nowadays, we say earn with integrity, and if I had my own business, then I might begin to think, okay, how do I apply those principles? You know, I'm not going to do anything unethical. But if I don't direct that business, if I work for a large corporation, and that corporation I have no influence on exactly how it makes its decisions and what it does. And it seems like I'm maybe kind of locked into this. Is there, am I on a horrible path if I'm working for a corporation whose ethics may be questionable? Is it something that I need to think about getting out of right away? Is it something that I can work with? Any thoughts? Is there a way that what I'm doing here can be purified or sanctified in some way, or is it hopeless?
Yeah, it's Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, every endeavor in this world is covered by some fault. And ultimately, wherever we function in this world, it's likely that we're going to be connected to some level of corruption, exploitation, that kind of thing. What I would say is two things. I would say the first thing is definitely we should always be open to trying to evolve towards a career and a way of working that's in line with our principles as much as possible. And so, the tendency is once we have security, once we have a kind of job that pays the bills and which is comfortable, we kind of just like, I don't want to disturb this, let me just like carry on. But it would be beneficial to always be open and make an endeavor to evolve towards not just a career that earns you money, but a career which really is in line with your principles and a company which is having the ethics that you would want to ascribe to. But the other thing I think is that even if you are in a company, a kind of, global corporate, which, definitely has questionable policies, I think to earn with integrity can still be implied in the sense of how you conduct yourself within that environment. Every day you walk into the office, every day you kind of conduct your interactions and affairs. And how do you do that? What kind of character do you engender? How do you relate to people? I think a lot of that integrity is within your control. And so we can always do that.
And maybe the spending with integrity helps with that, or spending with generosity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you also, we may not be able to affect the company itself, but from what we get from that company in terms of whether it be wealth or influence or power or knowledge or ability, we can take all of that from a company that has questionable ethics and then utilize it in a good way. So
it's interesting. Like if we look at Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions this: every endeavor in this world is going to be covered by some kind of fault. It's actually a very flexible, forgiving kind of mood. He's asking Arjuna to fight a war. He's asking Arjuna to kill people on the other side. Even the people on the other side were like some really special people. And it almost feels like our tendency, particularly when we get into like start speaking about spirituality, is to begin to demand of others a level of purity, I suppose, that we feel is the proper ethic. And we maybe become unforgiving in terms of recognizing the difficult circumstances that a person may be in, that this world creates. But it seems that perhaps Krishna his approach is a bit more forgiving, a bit more tolerant, a bit more otherworldly as well, maybe a bit more like, yeah, life in this world is always going to be difficult. I want you to get yourself aligned with the spiritual type of thing. I want you to do the best you can on the spiritual level here, but also I want you to recognize, in recognizing that things in this world are it's hard for things to remain perfectly pure in this world. Let's align with that as well as we can. Do the best that we can with the difficult circumstances that we're in, and make the most of it, and still kind of find a way to purify ourselves as we move through it.
Yeah, I think if we can go to bed at night and say like, I'm making my best effort here, I'm making my best endeavor, I'm trying to work with my situation, And if we can sincerely go to bed at night and say, I'm trying my best, then I think that is what Krishna looks for. There's this famous story where Prabhupada was going out for a morning walk, and anyway, they were driving towards the park and they got stuck in a traffic jam. So they looked out the window and there was a sign and it said roadworks, temporary inconvenience, permanent improvements. And Prabhupada looked at it and he started laughing and he said the material world means temporary improvements, permanent inconvenience. So it's kind of like that, you know, like whatever you do, the world is a can of worms. If you solve one thing, another thing opens up. You can never really quite get it all under control. But it's almost like in that endeavor to get it under control and just doing the best you can, you actually develop what you're actually trying to develop internally. And so it's kind of like that other story of the guru who gave his disciple, I don't know if it's the Buddha, sometimes it's ascribed to the Buddha, that he gave his disciple like a kind of bucket which had holes in it, and he told him like go to the river and get some water, and he ran over and he filled it up, but by the time he came back all the water escaped, and then he went back again and he tried faster and then it escaped again, and he went back a third time and he came back and he said to the guru, it's useless. And the guru said, well, I didn't actually want water, I just wanted you to clean the bucket. So it's almost like that in the endeavor to try to be as pure as you can, you just get purified. And that internal purity comes, even if externally everything is not as you'd want it.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can end there. But I'm really appreciative that you came here, and I really hope that we can, Wisdom of the Sages community and you and all the work that you're doing, that somehow we can maybe find a way to connect it together.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an honor. Thank you everyone for tuning in and being here. It's always been on my bucket list to be on Wisdom of the Sages. So there you go. One more thing ticked off.
2 times on Wisdom of the Sages can be the next.
Okay, two times at least. Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ismail, are you here?
Yeah, sorry, it just dropped, but I'm back on.
Okay.
Music.
Then we play a little music at the end.
Yeah, that was a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being with us today. And I think, Mary, you can put the links that Mara shared in the...
I'll include them in the show notes, yeah.
Put them in the show notes. Thank you. Everybody, wonderful to see you again. We will be back again tomorrow morning with some very, very fascinating part of the Bhagavatam we'll be in. You know what we're going to talk about? The old snake and the rope analogy. Yeah. Classic Vedanta we'll be dipping into, so that'll be worth coming for. Such a joy to be with you all today. And as Raghunath always says, let the magic continue to flow. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.